Hi, I'm Stuart from the Norfolk Honey Company and welcome to another Beekeeping Basics. So today I thought we'd have a look at some new product that I've not tried before. I've ordered some pollen substitute from a website online called beekeeping.co.uk, and I'll put a link down into the description. Fantastic service, placed the order online, paid for it, the delivery came the very next day. Everything was communicated to me, when the parcel was going to be delivered, who was delivering it, got a message to say what time it was going to be delivered, and as it turned out I wasn't here but got an email to say that it had been delivered. So from first impressions, everything has been fantastic in terms of the delivery of the product. I haven't opened the box yet, so I thought I'd just wait until I could do a video. So let's open up the box and see what we've got. So it's all really well packaged. I ordered a 50-pound bag of pollen, so that should be a fairly large sack. So plenty of packaging. It's been put in a large bag to keep it well protected. So I think Bee Equipment used to be the UK Mann Lake company, but that's since changed. And here it is. Okay, so first impressions are it's been really well packaged, so delivery is fantastic. It is manufactured by Mann Lake, so it's called Bee Pro Honeybee Pollen Substitute, and we're going to have a look at how we have to mix it up, and I'm going to make up a small amount and we'll see how we get on with it. So here it shows you how to mix up a 100-pound batch of finished product, which would use the entire sack. So what I'm going to do is make up a mix using a pound of the Bee Pro, and just to see how it turns out and check the firmness of the product. So the Bee Pro can also be fed dry in the spring as well, but we're going to make up some pollen substitute patties using some sugar solution and feed it to the bees during the late winter period, and hopefully that's going to encourage the bees to build up in time for the early season oilseed rape. So let's mix some of this up and see how we get on. So I'm just mixing up a heavy sugar syrup, which is 2:1 sugar to water. What I'm using is 2 kilos of sugar to approximately 1 litre of water. I don't think it needs to be absolutely exact. I'm just going to dissolve the sugar and then we'll add the pollen substitute. Okay, so I've made up the sugar syrup and we're just going to let that cool down a little bit. We'll take a look at the pollen substitute powder itself. I do have to say that I'm not being supplied the product or being paid by Bee Equipment or Mann Lake to do this product review. I purchased the product myself, and this is purely a review for my own benefit and to show everybody what the product's like and to see how well it works out. So I've opened up the bag and this is what we've got. It's a fine powder, and if you see it on the plate here, we're going to mix this into the sugar syrup until we get a fairly loose sticky dough, and then I'm going to leave it overnight and see how much it firms up. So what I'm going to do is add 500 grams of pollen substitute. We've got 500 grams of pollen substitute, and we're going to pop it into here. We're going to pop it in here and mix this one up first, and then we'll see how well we get on. So I've mixed in 500 grams of the pollen substitute, and you can see that it's quite a thick consistency already, so I don't think I'm going to add another 500 grams. What I might do is leave this one and see how it settles overnight, and I'll mix up another one and perhaps add an additional 100 grams and see how it is after 100 grams, and then we'll maybe make a decision on adding some more. But this is already quite thick, and I suspect that this will stiffen up overnight and should be a fairly good consistency to put onto the bees in the morning. So here we've got 600 grams of the pollen substitute. So we're going to take this and pop it into the second bowl. And then we'll get this mixed up and see what consistency this has. Okay, so this is the 500 grams of pollen substitute. Let's just have a look at this. So this is still quite liquid, but I think it would probably hold in a thin patty placed on top of the brood comb. So that, I think, is probably quite close to where I want it. I think that having it in a more liquid form means that the bees can probably utilise it a lot easier than if it's in a solid block. So let's have a look at the next one, which was the 600 grams. So this one is the 600 grams of pollen substitute in a litre of sugar syrup. I think this is probably how I want it. It's not so firm as it's turned into a solid block. It's still quite spreadable, but I think this will probably hold its shape a lot more. My biggest concern with the previous one is that when you cut into it, it might drip between the frames and run down into the cluster of bees. But I think this one is definitely going to hold its shape, but it's still soft enough. So I think this is going to be the one that I'll choose to use. And finally, this is just the little bit of sugar syrup that was left over that I mixed freehand, and that's okay as well. So if you chose just to mix it up by eye and didn't weigh it out, then you'd probably get away with it. This is quite similar to the consistency of the 600 grams of pollen substitute. So to feed it to the bees, all I'm going to do is pop it into some cling film and just fold it over and squidge it out into a flat pancake, and then that can go directly above the brood frames. This was the little extra piece that I had, so there was some extra sugar solution left over, so I just hand mixed the pollen substitute into that. So if we move that to one side, for each of these I used 1 litre of the heavy sugar syrup and then added 600 grams of pollen substitute. So the original mix was 2 kilos of sugar to 1 litre of water, 1 litre of 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 1 litre I then took a litre of sugar syrup out and mixed 600 grams of pollen substitute into it. The one that I had 500 grams in, I've actually just added another 100 grams of pollen substitute to bring it back up to the 600. And you get 3 approximately 600 gram slabs to put onto the bees. So if you didn't want to make it all up at once, and if you wanted to maybe share it with a beekeeping group or some friends that were also beekeepers, if you bought a sack of pollen substitute, you could then divide it up, weigh it out, and everybody could go away and make their own pollen substitute to feed to their bees. Of course, you don't have to use the pollen substitute. I'm choosing to use pollen substitute because I want to prepare my bees early, because we have a lot of oilseed rape that potentially could flower early, and I want to make sure that the colonies are as strong as possible for that. And also we're going to be queen rearing this year, and I want to make sure that I've got strong colonies early in the season for queen rearing. There is a downside to that, of course, in that if we hit a particularly cold period, or there's a period where there's no forage, no pollen and no nectar, I'm going to have large colonies that won't have any food stores. So I'm going to have to continue to feed them until we get onto a nectar flow. So there is a slight gamble, and I think that for a lot of hobbyist beekeepers there's probably no need to feed pollen substitute unless you have a specific reason for it. So for instance, if you wanted to do queen rearing and you wanted to start that early in the season, or if you wanted to have a large colony ready to be able to split or to be able to put onto a particular crop early in the season, then there's really no reason to feed a pollen substitute. There's going to be a lot of pollen available early in the spring, generally for the hobbyist beekeeper. However, if you do choose to feed pollen substitute, then I think this product is probably as good as any. I have used a couple of other products which have been fine, but I just wanted to try this one out and see how it performed. In terms of the company that supplied it, everything went really well. In terms of mixing it, it's mixed really well, and the great thing about the pollen substitute is that you can mix it up to whatever consistency you want. So I'm choosing to mix it up to a fairly soft consistency, and others might want to mix it up into a firmer dough to be able to maybe put a larger block on. What I might do is try and feed it above a crime board as well, but I think the cling film is going to hold it quite well. I'll only put a small hole in it for the bees to be able to go through and to feed. So I think with it being on top of the brood frames and being wrapped up in the cling film, that's going to support it, and it's not going to sag down and seep through into the frames and over the cluster. So, but we'll see what happens tomorrow when I put it onto the bees, and then again in a week or two's time. It might all end in disaster, or it might be perfect. We'll have to wait and see. Tomorrow I'm going to take what I've already mixed up out onto some colonies and give them a week or two and see how well they're taking the substitute down. So far everything's looking fine, and we'll make another video when we feed them tomorrow, and then we'll catch up again with them in a week or two's time and see how well they've taken the food down. I hope you've enjoyed that. Please do subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. Hit the like button, and please comment down below if you use pollen substitute, or if you don't use pollen substitute, or if you use a different product, and we'll catch up again next time. Thanks for watching.